Good evening, everyone. This is a Columbus City Council meeting, and the date is March 26, 2025, and the time is 6:02. Would everybody please stand and we'll pledge allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on the agenda, item A, number 3, I'm going to make a motion. I move to approve the March 26, 2025 City Council amended agenda. And that's listed above there. So we're taking out the original agenda had items B2 and then January 22nd, 22 and B3 and the minutes and item D7, which is the generator bids, will have to be rescheduled for a later date.
So you made the motion, I'll second it.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Want to vote on it there, Jennifer?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Janet, aye.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye. We'll stop down to item number B, consent agenda.
So I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented and the supplemental bill list, which was distributed to the council prior to the March 26, 2025 meeting.
Scott, I'll second.
Any discussion on that? Any comments? Rob, you want to start voting?
Rob, aye.
Janet, aye.
Scott, aye.
Jenny, aye.
And Ron, aye. We'll go on to item number C, presentations and items for council action. Number 1 is the public forum. Is there anybody in the audience that'd like to get up and make a statement or a comment? State your name. You know how to do this, don't you, Brenda?
Well, I haven't been here in a while, but good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. I'm Brenda Miller, and I live at Quinault Street Northeast in Columbus here. I am here as a member of the Anoka County Election Integrity Team. We're also known as ACIT, and we've been here before a few times. I know because it's an off election year, it's not top priority for you as a council right now, but our citizens group focuses on elections, and so we continue to research election information. And you might be aware that Anoka County commissioners recently decided to renew their contract with NoInc, an NGO which controls the electronic poll pads for elections. The council passed it 4-2, even though they received hundreds of phone calls from citizens asking that they not renew due to cost after raising taxes over 16% on most of us, and because of concerns for the lack of security in anything used for electronics in elections. And those were 2 big concerns for the constituents that called them. ACIT shared with the county the information about the legislation that Texas Representative Pete Sessions is putting forward, entitled Make Elections Secure Again, also known as MESA. And this is I included some of that, or that information for you. This includes shortening early voting and hand counting paper ballots. And so we asked the county to delay their vote. Currently, the county has also put forward their information regarding the amount that these new poll pads would cost, and are stating that the county has the authority to tell the municipalities whether or not to use them. Members of our team who are very knowledgeable in IT and in reading and researching statutes have concluded that the municipalities have the right to opt out of their use. I have included a speech that was given yesterday at the county by Robert Kirchner, and he worked for Anoka City for over 30 years, and he has extensive knowledge on how to read through statutes, and I included that for you to look at. 2 cities have already decided to opt out. Columbus currently has about 3,000 eligible voters, and according to MESA and to the Minnesota Secretary of State, we will need to divide up into at least two precincts to keep it at 1,500. And this would actually make things much more manageable. It sounds a little daunting, but it would be more manageable. And my concern here living in Columbus is that I know we already have a problem uploading information from the tabulators on Election Day, and now we're supposed to use poll pads that use cellular, and that might also be problematic here. We in ASIP believe the county is vastly underestimating the cost of the poll pads and that they will cost much more for the municipalities than stated. State Senator Cal Barr and Commissioner Reinert spoke about this at the Linwood Township meeting on March 11th, and they agreed with us. Senator Barr commented that the poll pads can only really be used for 3 election cycles and then need to be replaced. And he stated his estimate is that each would cost about $2,500. The Anoka County Elections Manager, Tom Hunt, has stated the municipalities will be liable for any damage done to them. And then he stated that in order to save money, they were considering taking the old cases and cutting them down to fit the new poll pads. And so that kind of begs the question as how the warranty would work if they did that. ASIP has continued to pursue accurate data and has requested some information from the county at different times. Sometimes we're given the information, sometimes it's delayed quite a bit, and we're still waiting for some responses from FOIAs that we've asked for weeks and weeks ago. We're hoping we can work with them on some of this information. We've decided to go to all 21 municipalities to keep them updated on our findings. We've heard that Mr. Hunt will also be meeting with the municipalities. And so we would like to ask that we're welcomed to these meetings. And if that isn't allowed, if ASA could at least come and do a workshop with you. So that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you.
Can I just add one thing? I've been in contact with Brenda a couple times. I also had Jack call Tom to see if he would come and meet with us, and he declined. I think that was prior to when they did their vote. So just today we were talking about this, Brenda, before I knew you were going to be here. And I asked that, that he tell him that we really want to talk to him. And if he can't make time to come talk to the whole council, then I'll go talk to him. Because I really do want to understand their side of it. The other thing I want to add is and you were at the local government official meeting when they talked a little bit about that. What Tom Hunt said was that these poll pads would be operating on the Verizon cellular network. It's a dead zone here. And I brought that up to him. It's like, that's not going to work for us because you can't get a signal here on Verizon. And he's like, oh, well, then we'll have to do a hotspot, which I think to your point makes me a little nervous. So even if, I think there's some things to talk about that are unique to Columbus, and I really do want to get this discussed and figured out with them before elections time. Yeah. So thank you for the work that you're doing and for being so diligent and persistent on this.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brenda. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to? Kim? You'll state your name and your address, even though we know who you are. It's for the record.
My name is Kim Snell. My address is 5032 197th Avenue Northeast in the city of Columbus. And I'm here regarding some questions I have for the Davey Tree Company. And should I go ahead and just state them?
Well, we don't, I got to back up on this one. Are these the questions
Yes.
that I have,
No, that I have.
that you have? Are they the one of,
Should we wait until we get to that on the agenda?
yeah, why don't we, well, that's,
Because
Yeah, we'll have-
anything on the agenda is not for public open forum, right?
right.
No,
but-
we nixed that rule, but it's just easier to talk about it at the time that we're talking about it on the agenda.
Okay, I'll come back up when you get to the Davey.
Or else we could take her questions.
Up to you,
What do you
Mayor.
think, Bill?
I think it makes sense to, when the item's on the agenda, so it's all in the same set of minutes and conversation.
Okay,
Got it.
thank you. Anybody else in the audience? How about online, on Zoom? Anybody out there would like to make a comment or statement? Hearing none, we'll close the open forum, and we'll go on to item number 2 under C, which is the Lake Center for Youth and Family 2024 Annual Report. And Jack, are you going to read your little synopsis? Or?
I certainly can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Lake Center for Youth and Families, established in 1976, was founded in response to the vision of Forest Lake Police Chief Jim Trudeau and other leaders who recognized the need for a proactive intervention program to divert young people and first-time offenders away from the traditional court system process. Lake Center for Youth and Families continues to uphold its mission of ensuring the success of youth, adults, and families through programming and counseling, intervention, and enrichment to meet the ever-changing need of the communities they serve. The Lake Center for Youth and Families serve municipalities in Anoka, Chisago, and Washington County. Linda Matson, Community Outreach Coordinator for the Lake Center for Youth and Families, is present tonight to present an overview and an annual report to the City Council of the 2024 activities. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. Well, Mayor and members of the council and staff, thank you so much for allowing me to provide a brief presentation this evening. I am Linda Matson, and I'm currently the Community Outreach Coordinator for Lake Center for Youth and Families. Prior to that, I was the Executive Director for Lake Center for 5 years. And prior to that, I was in the Forest Lake School District for 36 years, with my last 8 years as Superintendent of Schools. So you can tell I'm not truly, or I'm not very gifted at retirement yet. So as was noted, 1976 is when Lake Center started, the Youth Service Bureau, as it was called then. And it was Jim Trudeau that really led that charge and served on the board a number of times, and really encouraged community leaders and members to really think about that whole idea of when youth would, find themselves with a minor offense. And there were really two choices at that point: ignore it and not do anything about it, or get them into the court system. And he thought that there should be some middle ground, which was why Lake Center was started. So since 1976, we have done that. We get referrals and from the counties and also from the Forest Lake Police Department. And we have those youth come in and talk about their actions along with their parents or guardians. And then there's a plan that's developed, and it might be restitution, it might be writing an apology note, taking a class, et cetera. If they successfully do that, that's turned into the county, and they don't go into the court system. And if they don't, which is about 15% of the students that are referred, then it does go into the court system. So that has been the constant since 1976. Other programs have been developed and have been changed. Some have been sunsetted, others added as the needs in the community change. We have enrichment, intervention, and counseling as our 3 areas of focus at Lake Center currently. Enrichment programming has included Youth First, which is a program, or which was a program in 2024 for students in grades 4 through 6 in Chisago County. It was an after-school program that was free of charge. We had it for 8 years, and we actually took it over from another nonprofit that folded. It was grant funded, so we kept being awarded the grant for 8 years. Unfortunately, for 2025, we did not get that grant funding, so that is no longer happening in Chisago County. Safety Camp is for youth entering grades 3 through 5. It's held in the summer. First aid, bike safety, and other presentations around safety are the focus of the program, and it's planned and delivered by Lake Center, by the Forest Lake Police and Fire Department, and other community leaders. As I mentioned, intervention, we have those contracts with Chisago and Washington counties. And really, as mentioned, not much has changed. It's really to help assist youth to develop healthy, positive decision-making skills and interrupt those harmful behavior patterns that they may have. Overall, in 2024, 189 clients were served in the intervention program with 258 sessions. And again, the 3 main referral sources are Chisago and Washington counties and the Forest Lake Police Department. We have another program that is at Linwood Elementary, and this is also grant funded. We have a full-time staff member at Linwood, and that is in the northern part of the Forest Lake school system. And she works with individual students, small groups, and classrooms. And the idea there is to get to students before we need to have an intervention. So it is really about prevention. So figuring out where are there issues, or what are the places where issues can result in an elementary classroom, in the cafeteria, at recess, getting on and off the bus, et cetera. And then looking at specific children that maybe just need an extra helping hand with them along the way. It was very fun last night. I was at the Linwood Township meeting, and the staff member that has that program presented, and we thought, of course, that would be a good thing for Linwood to hear, and it was great. We have last year over 400 students, and those are duplicated, so 400 students that have participated in the program, and it was very impressive to hear all of the things that she is doing to help keep kids on the right track and also to help and assist parents as well. This has been funded through a grant for 6 years. It was renewed for 2 more years. And as I mentioned, the other grant we did not get. We did get this one. They come from the same funding source. We got this one, and they doubled the amount that we requested. So we are very happy to have that program continuing to occur, and many of the elementary schools in Forest Lake would also like to have a program such as this. And of course, the reason is funding, that we are unable to do that, but would love to. A brand new program, and you have a handout in front of you, would fall under intervention, and it's the Education Engagement Program. It's serving students in Chisago Lakes, North Branch, and Rush City school districts. We have 2 full-time staff members that are working on that program. The funding comes from the St. Croix River Education District and the Chisago County Human Services Department. And it's to work with students that have a high absentee rate or are tardy. And instead of just putting punishments, so to speak, after so many days, et cetera, the 2 staff members talk to students, talk to families, and get to the root of why is it this child can't get to school on time or doesn't come to school at all. There isn't one reason that they all fall into. So figuring out what that is and then trying to help and support that student and their family is the goal behind that new program. And then counseling is our 3rd program area. We serve young children through adults. Our youngest is 3 years old, and we have adults in their 70s and 80s that come to us. You can have an appointment virtually. You can come to our office, or if you're a student in the Forest Lake School District or Lakes International Language Academy, we go directly to the schools and meet with students. We've had interagency agreements with Forest Lake schools since the early 2000s. And when you look at the client counts in various age categories, you'll notice 52 clients are aged 6 through 10, 86 were aged 11 through 15, and many times when people ask me about counseling, they think about that as something that only adults engage in, but youth certainly do as well, and they certainly have, particularly since 2020 and the pandemic. In 2024, 217 clients were served for 3,468 sessions. One of the things about Lake Center is we don't turn anyone away if they cannot pay. And so we've had 33 clients in 2024 use our sliding fee scale for 303 sessions, totaling almost $33,000. So that is a line item that is in our budget, and it continues to grow every year. Our income, it comes from program fees, grants, charitable gaming, special events. The Taste of the Lakes is May 1st, and there's a flyer at your places regarding that. It's at Tanner's Brook Golf Course in Forest Lake. So you buy a ticket, and then you get to come around and try food from many restaurants that are in the area, and then municipalities and counties. And on the back of the annual report, you will note those that have supported Lake Center in 2024, and most have done so in multiple years. And that includes the city of Columbus. So on behalf of the board of directors of Lake Center, our staff and our participants and clients. I want to thank you for your support of Lake Center. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And if there's something that I don't have the information for, I'll certainly get back to you. Or also, if you think of something later on, you're like, oh, I wonder about that, feel free to contact me and I can always get back to you.
Anybody have any questions? Well, I got a statement. Are you retiring, Linda?
Well, what is happening with Lake Center is I've been in this position since all of 2024 and was going to serve in 2025, but Jamie Pretner, who was the executive director last year, decided that she was going to step down. And so there needed to be some rearranging, and they're looking at different things. When I was executive director, I did the outreach as I've done this past year. So this position is going to be eliminated. My last day is April 5th. This is my last municipality meeting. And I love doing these. And so they, hopefully tomorrow, so cross your fingers, at their board meeting are going to hire a new executive director who will start on Monday of next week. So, and we hope that Jamie is staying. I think Jamie is, to do finances and also to bill for insurance, which if any of you have ever been involved in insurance billing, it is a tangle, and she's a master. So we're hoping that she's going to be able to stay. So I'm going to be done April 5th, and who knows?
Well,
Do you have a job for me?
might have. I just want to thank you for all your services. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you graduated from Forest Lake High School, didn't you?
I did in 1977.
And then you came back and taught. And
I
moved,
did. I taught junior high for 16 years.
and then you got into administration.
Yeah.
And then you moved up, and then you got over to the Youth Service Bureau or whatever. But you're a real advocate for kids and family, and I want to thank you for all your services.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's a very good program. I remember I taught for the Youth Service Bureau for a while. In fact, you know that I think a couple of the council members up here graduated while you were the superintendent? How late were you in? I mean, when did you
As superintendent, I was there from 2009 to 2017.
Oh, no.
Just
No.
missed us.
Just missed the two on the end. But you might have been their principal,
Well, I taught, and then I coordinated the program for new teachers, which was a great job to have. I loved it. Then I was a curriculum coordinator for 3 years, and then I was the director of teaching and learning for 8, and then superintendent for 8. So.
Well, I know one thing about you, Linda, you won't retire. You'll be around. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Where are we here? Item number 3 under C is Lakner's Woodland Ponds Development Agreement Amendment.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'd like to bring up for your consideration an amendment to the development agreement for Lakner Woodland Ponds. This plat was approved by City Council back in 2018. It was a residential plat lot split that split a single residential lot into 2. During that approval process, the city required funds for the future improvement of that road, which is Zodiac Street, be escrowed. The escrow deposit to pave that relevant portion of Zodiac Street was set at $15,000, which would be returned to those who paid it if there were no improvements to Zodiac Street by October 9th, 2028. In 2019, there was an amendment to that development agreement, which allowed a deferred escrow agreement, allowing the developers, owners of the lot, to pay that $15,000 when the lots were sold rather than right away when they were split up. It also included a provision that barred the future owners of those properties from ever participating in a petition for the improvements of Zodiac Street. This came before City back in November of 2024 at a workshop meeting on November 12th of 2024 before the City Council to review a language change in one of the portions of that development agreement, which actually made it so when the money was returned, it would go to the owners of the property rather than those who paid it in the first place. So we first brought it up to change that, and since then it has come back to us again to review the entire development agreement as a whole. At this point, it is not reasonably possible for Zodiac Street to be improved by 2028, and city staff has recommended that we waive that escrow requirement and that provision which bars them from participating in future petitions for Zodiac Street. At this point, it is preventing the owners from selling those lots, as they would have to pay that escrow only to be returned immediately back to them in 2028. Does anyone have questions?
This is Janet. I don't have any questions, but I just want to say the Lakners were the very first residents that contacted me after I was elected to council, and so I have advocated to make this right for them, and not so successfully. So I will be more than pleased to vote in favor of this. It's been a long time coming.
Yes.
Is there any other discussion? Jennifer?
No, I mean, ultimately, it comes down to the fact that reasonably, Zodiac won't be repaired within this few years, so ultimately, it seems fairly cut and dry.
Scott, do you have any?
No,
Question?
I agree. I think the likelihood of, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, the likelihood of Zodiac being paved and then before 2028 without somebody, the residents wanting it, isn't going to happen. So
Not on my radar.
very small, if any, risk to the city financially, yeah.
Rob, any?
Yeah, I believe we just repaired it a little bit, patched it up, so it ain't going to be before 28, so.
Okay. Well, I agree with most you and Janet. And Janet, since you started this, you say back in, what was it?
2019.
Oh, I thought it was like 2000 or 1999.
No, not that
All
far.
right.
It only
Well,
feels that
Do you
long.
want to read the motion then?
I definitely will. So I move to approve an amendment to the Lakner's Woodland Ponds Development Agreement dated November 15th, 2019, to remove recital 3, escrow for improvements, and recital 4, future petitions.
This is Jenny, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Anybody have any questions or discussion?
No, I want to correct what I said, though. I was thinking of Notre Dame out here. Different. Zodiac's dirt.
It's a gravel road.
Yeah, it's not far from my
okay.
parents, so yeah.
How come we didn't catch that?
I knew it, but I wasn't going to correct it.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's okay. No comments or questions or nothing like that? We'll take a vote then.
Rob, aye?
Janet, I.
Scott, aye.
Jenny, aye.
And Ron, aye. And thank you, Tom, for putting up with it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. We got that off to.
But we did just fix it. We added some more gravel to it.
I just drove down. Yeah, it's all nice and smooth right now.
I was down there today, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Funny we didn't pass.
it
Not
probably
many cars
did.
go down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Tom. Have a good night. Item number 4, under C, Davey Tree Expert Company Conditional Use Permit. Is Travis McDonald online? Hi, Travis.
I am here, sir. Hello. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
You know, usually we start this off by asking you to give us a little brief about your business, you know, but I think everybody on the council has heard, so you don't have to give us the whole brief or nothing like that. I think we all watched the Planning Commission meeting, but I do have a few questions I'd like to ask you, Travis.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
My questions go towards the wood storage area and that, and the chipper, okay? So when you go out and according to, there's laws, and you know it probably a lot better than I do, but when you transport wood across county lines, if it's diseased or whatever, I don't know what kind of rules you follow on it, but are you bringing those diseased trees into Columbus then?
No, so anything that is quarantined, for instance, if there is a particular county that is quarantined, but the other county is not, we're not moving wood from one county to the other. Like Emerald Ash Borer, when it first arrived, there was strict quarantine where you can't move firewood from another county to another location. But we follow all Minnesota Department of Agriculture laws and regulations. We have to in order to maintain our tree care license in the state of Minnesota.
Okay, so would you bring ash borer into, even though we got it all over?
It's already there. So when it comes to something like that, when we're processing the wood, the Department of Agriculture requires the wood to actually be chipped. So therefore, all of our wood that we do chip gets chipped, and then actually that product that we would be storing would be getting hauled out and actually brought to an incineration plant right in St. Paul there.
Okay, my other question is when you talk about chippers, what size of chippers are you talking about, and what kind of logs are you talking about? Are you talking like 30-inch logs? Is this chipper going to chip up, or are you talking about the ones you pull behind your trailer?
Yeah, these chippers are like residential chippers. So they would take anywhere up to a 20-inch log. Anything bigger than that would be hauled out with like a log loader. And that wood would be stored. And then we would bring in our semi trucks and load that wood on and bring it to our mulch facility plant where we would grind that into mulch product in South St. Paul.
So the grinding that you would do at this location that you want to go to on Lake Drive there, that would just be the small chippers if you had to chip up anything?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. But we wouldn't really be chipping much on site. It's like when we go out to a residential house, when people call us to have a tree removed, we would process a majority of the tree right there. And anything that was too large for us to chip, we would put it in the back of like a log truck and then haul that back to the site, dump it, and then stack it. And then it's not a very large area where we're looking to try to just put some of that byproduct. We would be having our semis call and just have them come up, load it up, and we haul it away. If that answered your question, I'm sorry.
No, I think you did, but at the same time, you're hauling the mulch away too.
Yeah, so it's not mulch yet. We call those just chips because actually a lot of those chips are not used as mulch. So chips are usually just brought to an incineration plant or decomposition to turned into organic matter. So we don't do anything with the chips. If you have anybody that wants chips, we'd be more than happy to give them as much as they'd like, but we don't do anything with them. They're just a product that we bring to Excel Energy, and they use them actually to produce power.
Okay, then another question I had is when you're going out, are you just cutting trees, or are you putting chemicals in them, or trying to treat them?
Yep. So we specialize in plant health care. So consider us the tree doctors. We're all certified arborists, and we have what's called the Davey Institute of Tree Science, where we go and learn the ins and outs and biology of trees, and we study disease and insect management. And our goal is to help to try to preserve trees for as long as we can in residential settings. So we will do injections on them. We will fertilize them. And the fertilizer that we do use is a fertilizer that is non-leaching. It's designed exactly like a forest mat that's out in the forest. It's a patented fertilizer that Davey Trees made since 1960. But yeah, we do a full scope of leaf disease treatments, insect management, just pretty much maintaining an entire landscape of people's properties.
So these chemicals that you might have to shoot into the trees or whatever, where are you going to store them then? In your warehouse there?
Yep. So, so the Minnesota Department of Agriculture has certain restrictions. So I have many different Davey tree locations throughout the Twin Cities and down in Rochester. And as long as they are in a contained area with ventilation, along with a lock and key, all the products that we do store is in small quantity because, we don't want to keep that much on hand. But it's all products that have a non-restricted use. So therefore, it's not a harmful product because our employer, Davey Tree, won't allow any of us to use any products that have restricted use for the particular reason of harming our employees. So we don't use anything of that nature.
So is this something that would be outside in a cage locked up, or would it be in your warehouse?
No, in the warehouse in an organized, facility with, we would have to meet with, we would put in an eye wash station, for instance, if they were, pouring product into a truck. Like we have certain regulations from our safety department that we have to abide by for not only OSHA, but Minnesota Department of Ag as well.
Okay, and just looking at a couple of questions here. How should we address Kim's questions out there?
Mr. Mayor and council, if you want to bring her up to the mic, she can ask the questions, and then she can sit down and the testifier can respond, but it should be directed through you so that we don't have a back and forth between the parties.
Okay, Kim is on our planning commission.
Oh, Kim is, okay.
Do our questions first.
Council, yeah.
Sure.
That makes
We'll do our questions first.
Council first. and then-
Okay, I think that's all I have, except for, how many facilities do you have in the Twin Cities then? Just the one, South St. Paul and Plymouth?
We also have one in Eden Prairie as well. And I started that one back in 2012. We've got one in Plymouth, which is a Davey-owned facility that's been there for about 60 years. And then we own another one down in South St. Paul. And that's where we have our mulch division and a residential tree care division, along with a landscaping and commercial grounds division. We recently did acquire Mickman Brothers right there in Blaine. So we own them as well. So they're a part of the Davey Tree family. And we also have another residential tree care operation down in Rochester as well.
Is there going to be anything transferred between here and Mickman's property? I mean, is there any reason to haul mulch or chips over there or bring anything over? Are they like two separate businesses, kind of?
Completely different entities within our organization. Like they're a commercial landscape and grounds division, and I'm just a residential tree care division. So I would be servicing residential and commercial tree care. So if a large commercial property had called us out to say, what's going on with my trees, we would help figure that out on a commercial landscape and put together. For instance, say the city of Columbus someday, and you're looking for a management plan to help preserve your park trees. That's something that we would do on a residential scale.
Okay, one last question. I know I'm talking a lot here, but a lot of questions. I'm sure.
That's okay. Yeah.
So I'm driving down the road, or someone's driving down the road. Can they stop in at your shop? And
yeah, absolutely. We'll always have somebody there.
Okay, could somebody stop in there with wood chips and give them to you?
No, we don't allow. We wouldn't have enough room for something of that nature. That land is 2.5, 3 acres. This is just going to be for us to bring back our product that we've serviced the clients for the day. And then as soon as we start getting, a little bit filled up, we haul it out. But we wouldn't have access for people to just dump and dispose of because one, we don't know what they're actually doing. What is the product that they're bringing? If they mix something in there, we know we're liable for it. So we like to make sure that we keep that under kind of a lock and key, as if you'd call it.
So most of your customers call you on the phone, then stop in at your place. Is that usually the?
Not really. Throughout my 17 years of being in this business, we might have a handful of clients that actually might stop in they want to hand deliver their payment. But very seldom do we ever get people that just randomly stop in. More or less, the people that would stop in are people looking for jobs. You know, hey, I'm an arborist. You know, I've seen you guys everywhere, and we usually guide them to be like, oh, here's an online application you can do. But we don't get, I mean, if I had 2 or 3 people stop per year into my office in Eden Prairie, that would probably be a lot. And we're actually probably pretty happy to see them. They're long-term clients, but no, people don't just stop in to say, hey, I'd like to request a proposal. We'd be fine with that. But people usually just call us on the phone.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer,
Yeah.
you have some questions?
Yeah, so just to confirm, this is basically going to be treated somewhat like a storage facility, is that correct? So you have 16 trucks, it said, 16 company trucks, so this would be more as vehicle storage. People would come every day, get their truck, and then head out to their job site. Is that kind of what we're understanding?
Exactly. Like not much really takes place around like the shop area. You know, that's where we like conduct our safety meetings every morning, and we stretch and we go over our day's agenda. But everybody dispatches and heads out to the work orders, the addresses of the properties that we're working at for the day. There would be, you know, a few people like on the management team that are like working in the offices all day. Along with like our client experience coordinators who answer the phones and help with the billing and do all the paperwork and stuff for us. But, you know, I would say 90% of our entire team is always, you know, after they come in, get set up for the day, they check all their trucks, make sure everything's loaded and secured. We have a strict policy about everything that we do because, you know, we need to follow things by the book. So.
What kind of trucks do you have? Do you have a variety of sizes of trucks? Do you have dual axle? What are we looking at for, I mean, just because Lake Drive has kind of become notorious for having volume large vehicles. And so we're just curious what that is going to look like with the addition of these 16 trucks.
Yeah, so a lot of our trucks can vary anywhere from, you know, 14,000 GVW up to 32,000 GVW. So to give you an example, like a chip truck would be like a single axle, a CDL Class B truck. I don't know how to describe like the sizes, I guess. Smaller, like landscape trucks, I guess, if you'd call it. I mean, do you know what an aerial bucket truck looks like? That's got like, you know, a boom on it to where you can like boom up and work on, I guess an example would be like power lines that you see people pruning back power lines. That would be a bucket truck. So we'll have a couple of those there. Basic size trailers with like little mini articulating loaders, like a little stump grinder. The chippers that we tow, a majority of them don't even actually require anything other than a Class D license. So ask me some more questions if you're looking for. I'm trying to explain them. I guess I don't have size, but no, they're not like everyday like semi trucks and big box trucks. You know, like that. They're size of like moving company trucks or anything of that nature. You know, some of them are going to be pickup trucks with like little spray rigs out of the back that, you know, where we're going out and spraying trees for leaf diseases. You know, our sales cars are like, you know, RAV4s, so little small sales cars. I'm trying to think like an F550 truck with like a little 12-yard chip box on the back with like a lift gate. That's what we use in the tree care side.
So just
Does that give you
variety of sizes.
Yeah, it's a variety. Like it's all different scales because some trucks are like we need small trucks to get into small little neighborhoods. And then if we have like large, like big removals that need to be done for the day, we'll send out bigger chip trucks with bigger trucks to haul more material. So it's a variety. And I'm sorry, I can't give you exact like dimensions. I don't know them off the top of my head.
So would your Plymouth facility have the same type of equipment there that would be similar to what's up here?
Yeah, they would. They're a little bit larger for sure. in size. They've been there for a long time, so they have a lot of equipment. This is a startup pilot office where we want to try to start servicing that neck of the woods. And we've been servicing the Columbus area and Forest Lake area for quite a long time. It's just we're trying to cut down on windshield time, because we're driving all the way from South St. Paul up there, and ultimately, with emissions and fuel and everything, it just doesn't make sense to keep driving that far every day.
And then my second question links back to what our mayor had asked about the wood chipping. I know you talked about some of the larger stumps maybe ground on site in Columbus. What does that noise look like? Because we do have some residents that live in that area, and I'm just a little bit concerned about the noise. I know you said it wouldn't be often, but I just was curious if that's something that may impact residents.
So as far as you're saying on site, like at the facility location?
Correct.
Yeah. Like when I say like we would be chipping once in a while there, it would be like, say if a chipper broke down, and we had, a job on a client's property and a chipper broke down and we had no way to get the rest of the brush. So we would take the brush and put it in the back of a truck, bring it back to the facility. And then when the other crews got back at the end of the day, we would chip it into a chip form and then just dump it in a pile and then have it hauled away. So we wouldn't be chipping there every day or making an absorbent amount of like noise every day. I think that that was just more of like, hey, we might have a one-off. I was talking with Eleanor about that. Like as far as if a chipper broke down, how would that? I don't want to say that we would never chip there, but if I had to like process a couple limbs from something that someone brought back to the shop because the chipper wasn't working, could I chip on site for a couple minutes? It wouldn't be very long by any means. So as far as noise decibels, you'd have to wear earplugs, but it wouldn't be, think of it as like, a leaf blower and a large commercial mower all going at the same time for a very short amount of time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Those are hard questions to actually answer, like to give you. I didn't know that if I would have got you like the exact noise decimals and stuff that those chippers do produce, which I could ask our safety department.
I have some questions too. Eleanor, is it possible to do a Google map of their Plymouth location view? Because I think the visual will help us understand what kind of equipment they're using. It's 2500 Fernbrook Lane in Plymouth. And the overview shows that Councilmember Lakner just shared a picture of the overview from Google. Those chippers are actually trailer chippers, and if it's my understanding, you're bringing those trucks with the trailer chippers back to the site in Columbus, and you're dumping the already chipped material there, stockpiling it so that it can be transported by a large commercial truck when you have enough to stockpile, correct?
You are correct. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So we're not doing chipping there. It would be a rare instance. And then for the larger pieces that you can't use on these small chippers, you're just hauling those whole somewhere once you stockpile those.
A lot of those will be, we're not logging things out. So a lot of those things are going to be, say, 5 to 6 feet long. Something where a grapple-like loader can come in and be soft enough on people's grass to where we can go in and grab those logs and then put them in the back of a truck. And then we'd haul those and bring them to our mulch facility where they have large grinders that can process all that.
Yeah. So the concern, if there's anybody that's concerned that you're going to have a semi-sized chipper permanently on that lot, that's not what's going to happen here.
No, not at all. Nope, they're all like just residential small tree care chippers.
Yeah, and so we're looking at your Plymouth facility. I don't know how recent this is, but on the right side, those little yellow things are the chippers. Yep. So nothing massive out there. Okay. And then just a follow-up. So you mentioned you do have chemicals that are controlled by OSHA. Are you required to do any Tier 2 reporting with your hazardous material?
No, because it's not considered hazardous material. This is fungicide and insecticides. That is it.
Okay, fantastic. And then any outdoor above-ground storage tanks for fuel or anything like that you'll be having on the facility?
Nope. Anything larger than a 5-gallon gas can, we're not allowed to actually haul like on our trucks due to DOT and federal regulations because we don't have hazmat certifications. So we do follow all DOT regulations and federal because we're a nationwide company.
Do you fuel your trucks and your chippers on site, or do you do that off site? Do you have a vendor come in with a tanker truck and fuel them?
No, I mean, some offices do, but an office of this size is pretty small. So we just go to a local gas station and, fuel up there with fuel cards that we all have. And, if, majority of the team anyways always wants to kind of stop at a gas station in the morning to, if they forgot their lunch or whatever the case may be. So usually we hit up, fuel up in the morning and then head out to our job sites.
Okay, good. So we're not transferring any diesel fuel on site. That's great. A couple of great gas stations in our city here too for you. So
I know they're actually
wonderful.
really nice.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Last question I have in this vein is, so it sounds like you have no need for a MPCA stormwater runoff permit or spill recovery plan. You're not required to have that, right? Yeah.
I am not. Nope.
Okay. And then I know you and Commissioner Robin Wood were discussing screening in the fence line at the Planning Commission meeting. Going back to that, I believe you mentioned that you were planning on replacing the chain link fence with the screen fencing, the decorative fencing like you had in Plymouth. And somehow we got off on metal slats and filling those metal slats in with plastic. Are you planning any screening for the facility there, especially since we're going to have, up to a 15-foot high, for lack of a better word, debris pile? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I can. On the north side of the property here, we had talked about, I don't want the whole thing to look like, I guess like a prison fence, like around the whole perimeter. Like we like to have some natural bufferings. And so I had talked about back where, if we pulled up the plot map that we did with our architect, we put a few trees in between the building and, the fence line to try to just soften that area. So we're going to put some evergreens in there so that when you're driving by, you're not going to see that. But yet we offered to put some trees in just to try to soften that area over there. So if you would have to literally stop on the main road and look in between the building and the fence line and the storage. I think that's a storage facility right next door, to see in that back right rear corner where we would actually be storing the product. But just put a couple trees in. And then as far as the main gate, there's actually 2 gates to the building. One coming right off the main road, and then as you drive down and then you're going past the main office area, there's another gate. And that one's got like the barbed wire and stuff like that, vines all growing through it. We had talked about how, regardless if you guys told us to clean this up or not, like we were going to clean it up and just clean up the fence line there, put in some, slats that kind of match the building so that it just, kind of just gives you something better to look at than a chain link fence.
Okay. Well, I bring that up because it was a little, I was at that meeting, and it was a little confusing to me on what the intent was on the screening from the road side with that fencing. I believe under our code that 15-foot debris pile and the trucks would need to be screened. And there's several ways to do that. And you had mentioned one of them is the decorative fencing or a berm. And you had mentioned the Plymouth facility. And I took a look at the Plymouth facility, and it's beautiful. It looks really nice, and was wondering if that's still your plan or not, when you mentioned it at the Planning Commission?
So if you, as far as fencing in the debris area, that was not my plan. And I will explain to you why, because in between the building and the property line, if we put a fence right there, then that just kind of cuts everything off. I wanted to put trees there to make it look a little bit better versus just a fence. And then as far as in the far back of the property, if I fence in that debris area, that area is gonna, I've done it before at other facilities, and when you're pushing up chips or putting logs and you're dumping logs, that fence will look terrible in about 2 to 3 years because it's going to get all banged up because logs, when they roll, they push out the fence. It's easier for us to be able to keep a nice clean pile like what we do in Plymouth when we can go around all 4 sides of the pile and push it up nice and neat. But we're not talking a massive mound. Like, it's not going to be higher than the building or anything of that nature. It's just going to be back in the back corner and neatly just pushed up, cleaned up, separating out the logs versus the chips so that it just looks nice and clean. So like in between where like the main drive is going down along the side of the building is where we were going to clean up that fence and put slats in there so that when you're seeing a large opening of that building, you've got a nice fence right there to look at. But I didn't want to just slat everything and fence everything to where it looked like it was so, because it's a pretty landscape out front. And I think that I could clean that landscape up and make it look a lot nicer versus just a fence with slats.
Yeah,
Does that make
that's
sense?
what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the screening from the road view.
Yeah, and that's where we suggested that we were going to put in a bunch of evergreen trees between the building and that fence line to just soften that area so you don't see any of that.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay.
Hi, Travis. This is Janet. Some of my questions have already been asked, so that's great.
Okay.
You know, when I was looking at your application, it reminded me of one that we had a few years back. They were a landscaping business, not a tree care business, but they were doing mulching and things like that. So I kind of went back and refreshed my memory about what questions we had when that company was going through the permitting process. And so some of these are just like they might not apply to you, but I'm just asking the question because I haven't heard us talk about it. So, and I am thrilled to have you come to Columbus, so don't take any of my questions as an indication of non-support for you.
Well, thank you.
So you mentioned that you follow all the USDA guidelines, and that was one of the things that kind of came up. I think emerald ash borer was a little bit newer to us back then. I think pine bark beetle was another one. So there was actually a person from the USDA that came, and there was a couple of conditions that she had suggested that we incorporate into their CUP. I think things have changed a little bit. I think at that time, it wasn't so widespread, so moving wood products between counties was a bigger deal. I think now it's like we're all in the same boat, so it probably
Exactly. Yeah, I did deal with that for many years in my career, so I know what you're talking about.
So, but I do think it might not, you know, we have a whole bunch of conditions that just get put in everybody's CUP, you know, recommendations of the engineer, the watershed district, the attorney, blah, blah, blah. It might not be a bad idea for this kind to just say, you know, follow USDA guidelines or something like that, just to call it out as they change over time. I know you are doing that anyways as a matter of course, but probably just good practice for us as a city to have that as a condition. In one of the conditions that are currently there, or I'm sorry, in findings of facts, it says that the proposed hours are 5:30 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday with an occasional weekend activity. What is occasional?
Say for like storm response.
Okay.
Like when a storm rolled through and it's a Sunday evening and clients were calling us to say, hey, we've got trees on our homes and we can get out of our house.
Okay.
that's when we, it doesn't matter what time of the day or what day it is, like we're there to service our people, in a time of need. Say, for instance, if all week it was downpouring rain and, or it snowed for 4 days straight, which it doesn't seem like we get that anymore. We have to do production and therefore, our crews need hours in order to, make a paycheck. We might send them out for a full day Saturday to try to make up some hours so that they can get a paycheck for the week.
Okay.
So it's not we're going to work people, every single weekend by any means. It's more or less dictated based upon like what was the weather for the week. Did we have a storm roll in? Now, if we had a storm roll in on, say, Monday and there's a lot of tree damage, we might be working a Saturday and a Sunday to service all those people in need because we have so many people to get to.
Would the hours of operation be the same on a weekend as they would on a weekday, or would they start a little later on a weekend? 5:30 in the morning is pretty early. That's why I'm asking.
It usually would probably start early. It probably wouldn't be 5:30. 7 o'clock is about the time where we would have our crews coming in and dispatching. 5:30 would be more of like the management team coming in, getting all the paperwork and the routes ready. And that 5:30 is really just, I needed to provide something, but our start time is 7 a.m.
Okay. So one of the things I maybe will ask Eleanor to do is to just, get a reasonable estimate of what the hours would be if it was weekend, and just for the fact that then everybody's on the same page. I like, you can tell us what works for you, and then we can have that in the CUP. What does winter look like for you guys? I mean, I have an idea of what summer's, the growing season might look like, but what does this place look like in the winter, and what are you doing there then?
Yeah, we're extremely busy in the winter, actually. Everybody thinks that, oh, you guys must not work in the winter. No, actually, there are certain trees that can only be worked on during the dormant season. And so all summer long, as certified arborists, we won't touch certain trees. There are tree care companies out there that will not abide by best cultural practices, and they will work on trees regardless of when the growing season is or dormant season. We go off of the species of trees, like oak trees, elm trees, any fruit or nut bearing trees. They should only be recommended to be worked on during the dormant season. And if you work on them during the growing season, you have a higher risk of potentially having them get Dutch elm disease or oak wilt, because that's when the airborne pathogens are actually taking place with the bark beetles flying around and feeding on other canopies of trees, and they could actually, they're actually attracted to the pheromones from that pruning cut. So we actually do a lot of work during the winter. So we build a large winter backlog and we climb trees all winter long. Or say there's a client that has a beautiful landscape and they have, beautiful hostas all around the base of their trees. And they're like, I don't want any of this ruined. So we say, hey, let's wait till winter when they're all dormant and we can drive equipment onto your property and not do any turf damage. And then that's when we'll come in and remove their trees.
Okay. So not really very much different in the winter as it is in the summer.
I mean, let's say maybe like a 20% decrease in production.
Okay, that sounds good. So when you have your pile of chipped wood, there's no composting, right? I mean, it's not there long enough to start to compost. You're hauling it out.
No.
there. Okay, perfect.
No.
That was the answer I wanted. And then on the site plan, I didn't see, and you aren't required to do this. I was checking with Eleanor on this, but I didn't see any fire lanes. And I know, again, for this other business, they did have on their site plan fire lanes that were earmarked, and I think primarily because they had a lot of wood sitting there, that it was important for them to sort of show that they had thought about that. I'm just throwing that out there because I think that the fire chief will come out and maybe he'll have you put that on there, but if you already know where it's going to be, it might be helpful for us to have it on the site plan. That was one.
No, there would always be access to that particular area, but in regards to the wood, it's not going to be stored there for that, for a long period of time to where it could, combust from organic breakdown. We move it out pretty quick.
Okay.
Same as like our Plymouth location.
Okay. And then one of the conditions that I was talking to Eleanor about that I would ask that she put in there, and it's going to sound funny to you because you would probably go like, we'll never do this. But we have a big problem with parking on Lake Drive and unloading trucks or vehicles. And I know that some of the parking spots for where you're going to be are, leasing them out to Waldocks. So I'm going to ask that we put that in the CUP so that it's really not aimed at you. It's aimed more at your landlord. So
Okay.
I'm just, because.
What
because
is that? As far
because they take delivery of trucks, and a lot of times they can't pull them in to wherever they're unloading them, so they unload them on Lake Drive. And
okay.
that ends up being a problem, and we get tons of complaints about that because people are driving and then they've got these, big, huge, whatever you call them, those vehicle mover trucks that they're
Yeah, sure. Like the big car haulers.
And if that's not okay, then the attorney or somebody can say it's not okay, but I just thought this might be a way that we could curb that a little bit.
No, I think that's a very sensible condition. There's not a right to load and unload on the highway.
Yeah. And so, I'm sorry, it'll be in your CUP just because they're part and parcel to that, but it's really not aimed at you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. As far as that, just to give you a little background during this whole lease process, Mr. Waldock, we came to terms and agreement to where we're going to have a community drive where they are able to still drive like through the property over to their property to have access for that particular stuff as well. Now, I don't know all their details, but I said, that's no problem. He just needed to have a clear drive because he liked that area so that he could sloop like semis and stuff around. I think that's for car haulers. And he asked, like, can we actually pull down through here and still use this space to, unload semis and do stuff? I said, yeah, I don't care. I mean, yeah, let's all work together. And so I know that was one of his sticking points, and it wasn't a big deal to us at all.
Right. Okay. And on that, I don't have a problem with that either. I wanted to explain if you saw that pop up and you hadn't seen it before, why it's being suggested that we put that there.
I might add
Okay.
that when that condition attaches to the property, they will no longer be able to do that as well because it's attaching to your property. So that might be something you communicate to the other owner, to Waldock, that access for delivering vehicles would I don't know if they would still stage them out there on the road, but.
Or maybe Jack, you can give them a call and just explain it so that we don't, I don't want to create any ill will because they're great businesses and we like them a lot. But
yeah, I don't want to get involved in Mr. Waldock's business or anything. So
yeah, I don't want to get you involved either. So maybe Jack can call and just give him a heads up that's because it's his property. It's gonna. It would make sense to put it in your CUP. So there are no other than the wood that's being brought in to be the chips that are being brought in, or occasionally a log or something, or bigger stuff. There is no other outdoor storage. Is that correct? You don't have pallets of anything. You don't have equipment that you're going to keep on. I mean, I know you've got trucks parked in the back, but there's no other outdoor storage of anything.
Outdoor storage as far as like other materials, you mean? Or like, because I mean, we'll have like tippers and, say like a skid steer or something of that nature.
No, I don't. Well, because you've said a lot of that is going to be stored inside of the building, and the big trucks are going to be parked behind, so that's not a problem. A lot of times we get into outdoor storage with businesses, and I don't know that we're a little sensitive to that, so I just like to ask the question. If you can't answer it, it probably means you're not going to have any because you don't have anything in mind.
I would say probably the only thing that would be very short amount of time is like when we get a tree delivery. We're not going to be running a nursery or anything of that nature, but when we plant trees for clients, we would have a shipment of trees, say 8 to 10 trees show up, and we would have them there 2 to 3 days in advance before the work is scheduled, water them out back, and then when we're ready to schedule the job, we load them on the trucks and head out for the day.
No, that's not a problem. I mean, what I'm thinking about is, you receive pallets of, I don't know, some compost or something that you might use when you're planting trees, and you've got 10 pallets of compost sitting out there so that you can just load them up in your truck and go when you need to go plant trees. That would be outdoor storage.
Okay.
So you don't anticipate anything like that, we're good.
We're not going to have anything of a large scale by any means. One, we like to keep a pretty tidy, a tidy workspace. And two, we don't like to store product because then you're just storing money, on the shelf. So we get it on demand.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Bob, do you have anything?
No, and through the chair to Janet, I think once they put that Street Smart road in, I've noticed that it seems like they unload on that road, so it's not on the freeway anymore. And I don't know if that makes a difference for you, but I know I have noticed that several times traveling that road, that they're either backing into their own parcel now, if they can, or if it's too busy, it seems like they go down, turn around, and then unload and drive across. And it seems to make sense why they'd want to go through your lot too, because that's a straight shot across the road from that road there. So.
No,
Okay.
I've seen them do that too. I just think, but I also have still seen them on Lake Drive on occasion, not as much as they were. It just is it's an opportunity to just clarify that, I think, in a way that we haven't been able to address it in the past.
Okay.
Thanks, though.
Okay, I seen you look at your watch there. We'll get you out of here in a minute. Kim?
Oh no, I apologize if were you talking about me, Mr. Mayor?
It's okay.
I am actually on spring break right now with my kids, and so I anticipate at any moment I'm going to have a barreling house full of kids coming in the door. So I was just looking at it to make sure I better move to another room.
That's okay. Kim, you want to come up and ask your questions, or were they answered? Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's all. Well, thank you. Thank you, Kim, for coming in. And no other questions?
No, just, hey, thanks for answering all our questions and going through the gauntlet. You spoke well and answered them very well, so.
Yeah, we grilled you.
Thank you guys. This is actually my first time going through a CUP process. A lot of the times, I wasn't in this role, second year in as far as overseeing operations in Minnesota. And I appreciate you guys being patient and helping guide me and, figuring things out. So it's actually been a pleasure. So thank you all.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I just was taking notes. I heard one fact statement on hours that would be incorporated into the findings of fact, and I heard one new condition with regard to the truck loading. If that's correct, then we want to make sure that the motion maker includes that. It looks like Eleanor may have another.
I heard a second condition to be added in addition to the no parking and unloading, where it must abide by all USDA regulations to be added as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add that. You perfect.
Okay.
Okay, you got that? Can you hear that, Travis?
Yep. That is perfectly fine by me. We have to abide by all that stuff in order to actually be an accredited tree care company. So that's not only through you guys, but through our federal licensing as well.
So this is just a little educational thing for you. So sometimes when we're thinking about these CUPs, we're not just thinking about you because they pass with the land. We're thinking about who could go in after you. So you might have somebody who's got, a 5-star rating and does everything right, and then they move on to other places, and now there's another tree care company that comes in, and having those conditions in place for that transfer, the CUP really helps. So that's.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so that's sometimes where we're coming from when we're asking all these questions and putting all these rules in place.
Yeah, that's cool. No problem.
Just Mayor Council, all applicable, if you'd add that
Thank you.
modifier, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of USDA regulations.
Yes, yeah.
All applicable. Perfect.
Yep.
That's why we have an attorney.
'Cause they've come up with those $1 million words.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll make a motion. I move to approve Davey Tree Expert Company conditional use permit at 13733 Lake Drive Northeast with conditions listed in the city staff report and additions as recommended by city council. Do I have to repeat the two?
No, they're in the record.
Okay, all right.
This is Scott, I'll second.
I'm good.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded. Is there any other discussion or questions? Hearing none. Jennifer, you want to?
Jenny, I.
Scott, aye.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
Ron, aye. Well, welcome to the world.
Welcome to Columbus.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Are you,
I appreciate it.
the spring break up in International Falls, or?
I will no, I'm actually in Cabo right now. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so-
I was wondering what the wristband is for.
Yeah.
All
Parasailing.
yeah.
Have a good night.
So
That's right.
well, thank you all very much, and I'll definitely be seeing you all around the city there. So thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye bye.
We're going to go on item number 5, under C, MTW Truck Wash Site Plan.
A conditional use permit for MTW truck wash at 15217 Hornsby Street Northeast was approved by the City Council on September 25th, 2024. The applicant spent the winter months finalizing construction plans, and a building permit application for the facility was received in mid-March of this year. When we were looking over those building permit application documents, there were several small changes from what was submitted in the permit to what was approved in that CUP. A site plan review is required to make those small amendments, and that goes before the Planning Commission and the City Council, and that's what you're looking at today. There are a couple of proposed changes. There's a squaring off on the southern side of the building, the addition of an access lane and garage door to the mechanical section of the building, and the removal of windows from the back building, as well as some accent materials and decorative materials from the back of the building. This matter went before the Planning Commission last week on March 19th, and the Planning Commission is now requesting that the City Council consider approving this site plan change.
Well, does anybody have any discussion on this one? Jennifer?
No, this seemed pretty straightforward. I talked to James at the business breakfast about this. He assured us that these changes were not anything that really affected their current CUP, and Eleanor confirmed that as well. So to me, this is a pretty straightforward change.
Scott, do you have anything?
Nope.
Nope, like Jenny, I had a good amount of time to talk with James and Brenna at that breakfast and about the changes and how that truck would wash and both, or the truck wash would work, both having self-service bays and automatic bays, and that it's going to be open up to the public as far as if you wanted to pull your camper bumper pull RV through there and wash it, you'd be able to do so. So it's going to open a lot of opportunities, maybe for Camper World to quick wash their rigs before they send them out. So different, good ad for the area.
Good. Janice, do you have?
I did have a question. I talked to Eleanor about it. So if you look at the site plan prior to the one currently being proposed, It looks like the walkway that's in the front of the building and in the back of the building, the walkway disappeared, and in the front of the building, there's a big chunk that's not there, and I don't know if that was on purpose or if that was just an artifact of this, so I just was curious if we knew or could find that out.
So I can certainly find that out. You have a better eye than I do for that one. I can find out if that is the new site plan where that walkway will no longer continue all the way around the building and instead looks like it just leads to the doors of each individual entrance, or if that was an oversight, or if that is a way to limit impervious surfaces. That is an outstanding question that needs to be asked.
And I mean, if it is on purpose, I don't know that I have a problem with it. I just was just curious why.
Yes.
Especially in the front, it would look kind of funny to have a walkway and then like a big empty space and then the walkway continues again. That's in the front of the building. That's close to the Hornsby side.
Yeah, it looks to be smaller walkways that connect the doors to the different driveways instead of being a continuous walkway all the way around the building now.
Yeah. So that was the only comment that I had.
This one here you're talking about?
Yeah, see, there's nothing there, and then this, it ends there, and it ends.
So can I ask, Eleanor, even with the changes that were noted by Councilwoman Hegland, even if with the potential changes that they have, would that affect anything relating to their current CUP?
Relating to their current CUP, no, we didn't have a condition for that continuous walkway as long as there's still access. There's still a walkway from the parking area to the waiting area and the front door and access for all of those doors. So that can still be approved as a part of this site change, but I can certainly go back for clarification as to why.
And I think the only thing that it might impact is if it was an accessibility issue, like if that sidewalk went down so that, a wheelchair or something could get in there and now it's not there. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't even look at the CUP because I knew we weren't reviewing that. We were just looking at the site plan, so.
Yeah, there's an 88 ramp listed on there on the new one, to the right side on the sidewalk.
And as far as that, them being a commercial building, they would have to comply with all ADA access before they got a
Yeah.
building permit.
But you want the site plan to reflect what's reality. That's my point. If the picture's wrong, then just make it right to
Make
what's
it
really
right.
going to happen.
Yes.
Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Ron. I want to say something else that I brought to James's attention was the fact that we've had issues with overflow parking from Love's going on the side of the road previous to us putting no parking signs. So I don't know that it needs to be listed on here, but just did share with them that maybe they want to post that no parking, maybe have a gate at night when they're not open. I said, because that could definitely affect your business if you have people in there 2 trucks wide blocking your spot to take a nap before business opens. And they were going to take that into consideration.
Yes.
Because I know Stern Drive all across the street, they've had that happen often where they cannot pull into their own business because there's 2 semis backed in their lot. So just brought that forward to them.
Good point. Any other comments? Questions? Discussion? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move.
Go for it.
Oh, thank you. I move to approve the MTW Truck Wash Site Plan Review for the proposed minor changes to the building and site plan as presented in the staff report for this item.
And then can you just add the clarification on
That clarification.
that I brought up?
The what?
That we need clarification on the point that I brought up,
Which was what?
Sidewalk?
the sidewalk.
Sidewalk. Clarification, yeah, with clarification of the sidewalk.
Of course. Thank you.
I second. This is Janet.
We got a motion on the floor, and it's been seconded. Any other discussion? Questions? Rob, you want to vote?
Yeah, Rob, aye.
Janet, I.
Scott, aye.
Jenny, I.
And Ron, aye. We'll go on to section D, consultant, liaison, and staff reports. Brian, do you have anything to say?
Before we get into that, a lot of Brian's comments relating to the wetlands credits for the Hornsby Street, Eureka Avenue project will be addressed under the city administrator's report. So unless Brian has anything to add other than that, we'll bring him in on the comments when we get down to that section of the agenda.
All right, one more time. I got a what now?
Brian, we're going to talk about the wetlands credit
Oh, okay, down at the bottom.
at the bottom, and that's
Okay.
when we'll bring Brian in on that discussion. Unless he has anything else to add, that's when we'll put him on the spot.
All right, so we're going to skip him and run right to Bill.
Yeah.
No report.
Boy, that was quick. Now we'll go to the mayor and city council's report. Do you have a report or anything, Janet? I mean, Jennifer?
Under City Council, I have a few things. Monday, March 24th, I had a Coon Creek Watershed meeting. Nothing major relating to Columbus. The only thing I found interesting was that they had a long discussion relating to lack of green space and how that really affects groundwater and runoff. And Columbus doesn't really have that issue because we have our acreage minimums and some of the strict guidelines that we abide by. So while I was listening to issues with Coon Rapids and Blaine, I gave our city a pat on the back. Also, Fall Fest, we are potentially working on, or we're exploring the possibility of a potential road closure between the city park and city offices, City Hall, to allow for basically safer crossing of the street. That's still pending and working with the traffic technician at Anoka County on that. So the only other thing was that I got to work with Companion Animal Control. There was a loose dog that visited several neighborhoods, but I wanted to just give them a shout out because Companion did a great job communicating to multiple residents, and they were able to capture the puppy that escaped within 24 hours and then communicated out, and a lot of residents were very concerned. So great job to them.
Thank you, Jennifer. Scott, do you have anything?
Yep, run through a couple things real quick. The Forest Lake Cable Commission did not meet again because they did not have a quorum again. However, Jill assures us that at the next meeting in April 17th, she has confirmed that we have all confirmed that we will be there. So we will have one. In lieu of that, I just want to shout out to Brian Carlson, who did address the missing council meeting videos for us.
Yes.
Yeah, he did a great job, so we appreciate that. Brian, you're back in the hole back there. Give yourself a round of applause. No, didn't hear it. Okay. Turns out that Brian was unaware that we had changed the meeting from Wednesday to Monday. So Brian worked with city staff to make sure there's communication that when we change a date of a council meeting, he is aware of it, and they can get that video produced for our citizens to watch. At Columbus, that all of us attended here, was a great event. Thank you for letting me attend. I did learn that the Minnesota Trucking Association, which is a very big deal for the trucking industry in the state of Minnesota, if you didn't know, is holding their annual truck driving championship at Blaine Brothers Truck Lane here in Columbus. If you don't know that, it's a huge event for MTA. They have companies, trucking companies from all over the state that will be in Columbus for 2 days with drivers who will be competing to win top dog in several categories. The winners go on to the national event. I'm not sure where that's held this year. I am a member of the MTA, so I have been involved with this before. I can't understate that that's a huge deal for the industry. They do have grandstands out there. They generally don't advertise to the public because the grandstands are for the companies and the families. But that'll be coming up, I think, the second week in June. And it might be worth it if you just stop by and see what these men and women in those big rigs can do with those. The other good thing with that is a lot of our other companies are getting some runoff from that, like Running Aces Hotel will obviously be able to house a lot of those competitors and their families and companies there. I know they're using several companies in the area for overflow parking. So it's bringing some good recognition to the city, and it should bring some revenue for the state anyway, in sales taxes. So big deal. Glad that they're doing that. Also, I also learned that LIAISON will sponsor the Special Olympic World's largest truck convoy again this year, where it takes place. That's also a very big deal. Both the trucking industry and law enforcement are huge donators of time and money to the Special Olympics, and that's a fantastic event, which I've had the privilege of being a part of in the past. So always glad to see that here in Columbus, too.
Good, thank you, Scott. Janet, you?
There's a couple of things that I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the agenda, but the one thing I'll bring up is Teams meeting that Jack and I had with Midco. So we were contacted by them last week because there's a bill that was passed in last year's, I think, big omnibus bill, and what the bill does is require that any employee of a company like Midco that's installing fiber optic is now required to complete 40 hours of training before they can install the fiber optic. And the deadline for that training is, at least for the 7-county metro area, is July 1st. So this has been a big problem. It's a big problem for us because they had to come up with the training. They had to get DLI to approve the training. The training requires, and I can't remember, Jack, remind me if it's 10 or 20 hours of actually site work. So they have to do it during the construction season, and this bill didn't get passed until, the fall, and then you had the winter. So they're really struggling. They have introduced and this is at Midco, this is the Minnesota Cable something Communications Association, that Melissa Wolf, who used to be the government relations person at Midco, is now the lobbyist for. And so they have introduced a bill requesting that the legislators delay the deadline for this and push it back a year so that it gives them time to get their staff trained, and also to reduce the number of hours from 40 to, I think, 20 or 10, I can't remember. Anyways, to reduce the number of hours. The reason they contacted us was because we have 2 big projects that are on the construction schedule for Midco. And if this doesn't get changed, we won't get our projects. And that's federal money that has a deadline, and it will go back, and we won't get those done. So it's a big deal. So what they've requested is if we would be willing to come down and be part of their press conference, which they're going to try to schedule in the next couple of weeks. I'm also going to be contacting Commissioner Reinert so that he's aware of this, because I suspect that they will be asking him to come down too. There are 4 communities in Anoka County that received money like we did through Anoka County to get broadband expanded, and all of that money has a deadline. And if this is not changed, none of us will get on the schedule. So that's just a little FYI for you. If you hear anything about it, or you tune in and there's a press conference and you see us down there, that's why. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Rob, before you start off, can you also throw the fire board in there? We don't have that on the agenda, if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I have some notes on it here. Thank you, Jack. Ron, excuse me.
Oh, we look alike.
Well, it's getting closer.
I don't know who's taller, though.
So we had a meeting that Ron and myself attended for our fire board. We were both on that March 20th, just last week. The board elected Ron Hanegraaff as the chair and president of the committee, and Blake Roberts as vice president. Nate Moats will remain as the secretary, as done in the past. Talked about assistant fire chief position that we had tried to get some funding for in the past. We did not get that funding, but still looking to possibly still have that position in the future, as if something was to happen to Al Newman, who was really the leader of the operation and the know-how and all that. If in his absence, we would kind of be at a standstill, and Ron, I guess you'd agree with that, right? There was a lot of good conversation and question around it. Fire budget, currently $975,000, 195 of that being Columbus's responsibility, 780 of Forest Lakes. I'd ask about medical calls because that used to be something that would really bog down the fire department. Those medical calls have got less and less. The question was in the past, a lot of people didn't want to join the fire call or the fire board because fire department, because they were going to medical calls when these individuals thought they were signing up to run into burning houses and put fires out, not take medical calls. So Ron is going to be meeting with Anoka County on what that looks like for the future, but there has been a lot less medical calls, and that's helped with retention. Dual role employees, they currently have 3 that are work at Forest Lake, 2 from the building department, Nick Finelli and Nate Motes, as well as Mike Swenson, who's on the public works department. Those people are more or less the first responder. If there's a call, they're able to leave their position within the city and get in a truck and get going right away, while the others are responding, coming from their jobs, coming from their homes. It's helped with quicker response times and things of that nature. They did talk about how it puts the rest of the folks that work at the city kind of in disarray, right? Who's going to be running the building department when they're on the calls, things of that nature. The average call was typically only about an hour from the time they left to the station to the time they got back. But it did affect their day-to-day, but they're looking at different ways. With their new city administrator had some new ideas on how to work through those things with those dual role employees. Public safety money is being used for gas meter testing. Sensit calibrator is what it was. And we are going to be looking to add some firefighters here prior to retirements. There's some retirements coming up in the near future. More of those will likely need to be here in Columbus. I believe we only have 7 out of Columbus right now. And I think we were at roughly 11 previous, so we have dropped a few. But the idea is to get these individuals in, get them mentored up before the other one's retired, and things of that nature. That's all on that, but shout out to city staff, rest of the council, mayor, good job talking at the EDA breakfast. Thanks to Truck Align for hosting. They do a good job. They got a nice facility there. We heard from our House Rep, Nolan West, heard from Senator Kroon on happenings in government, Commissioner Reinert as well. Talked a little bit about the county jail and what that looks like. Currently, I think they were looking at 500 plus stall unit new jail in Anoka County. Sounds like the study showing they really only need around 300 or so would be sufficient. So there's some pushback on each other for the commissioners on what that's going to look like on that jail moving forward. Folks from Anoka County, Joe McPherson, Jerry Auger talked on upcoming road projects. Highway 97, Kettle River, Potomac were the ones of note. They did touch on 97 on behalf of MnDOT. There was a video played, I believe you can find it on YouTube, about what the construction's going to look like. It's going to be nice. From what I could see from that flyover. And then after that, did get a couple calls from local businesses that were happy that they heard about that road construction. They didn't know it was going to happen, but did say it was going to make their commutes a lot easier in the mornings to get to their businesses. So that's what I have.
Thanks, Rob. I just have, I did attend a round table discussion with Steve Massey of the school district. They had all the cities in the district from Scandia, Lino Lakes, Linwood, Centerville. They had them all there, and they were discussing what the school district's looking at in the future here. Nothing really serious in Columbus. They're kind of toying with changing the boundary lines for the elementary schools, but that's just in the baby phase of it, or what infant stages of it. But they did talk about the elementary schools now going down to grades 1 through 5, and sixth graders will be going to the middle school. And they are going, this is a quote from Mr. Massey, they don't want to do what Washington Stillwater School District got into. They are closing an elementary school. Those are the two, Forest View and Forest Lake, that sit next to each other. They're closing one, but they're keeping it open, not for students, but in case what happens. Our population's kind of dropping a little on students, but they see in the near future, in a couple of years or whatever, it's going to start rising again, because Forest Lake is looking at adding 100 to 200 homes. And then you got Lino Lakes down there that's still up in the air on what they're going to do down there. But it was a good meeting anyway. The second thing I'd like to say, can we, Jack, can we write a letter or something to Truck-A-Line thanking them?
Yes.
And they did a great job, so I don't know if we have to wait till EDA, but I thought we'd get it off early so that we don't forget it or whatever. So, let's see what's next here. Personnel Committee report, mission statement presentation.
So I'll take this one. If you look on page 69 of your packet, there's a memo describing two options for a mission statement. So if you remember when we met at our workshop on March 4th, Aaron kind of walked us through an exercise and got a lot of value statements and things that we felt were apropos about Columbus. And from that, he proposed a whole bunch of mission statements. I mean, it was like, 12 or something. And these are the two that the Personnel Committee kind of came up with. They're pretty similar. One is more what we strive to do and talking about rural values, and the other one talks about rural character. So you can't go wrong if either one of these makes them. But what I would like to have you do is to vote on your favorite mission statement, and then we can take that back to the Personnel Committee and move forward with some of the other work that's kind of contingent on our selection here.
Okay.
How do we want to?
Make a motion for that?
I'm not going to, I think one of you should. Well, we can talk about it. I mean, we can go down and see what everybody thinks, and if everybody's unanimous, it'll be easy to make the motion, won't it?
Would you like to say both?
Pardon?
Would you like to
Read them?
read both?
Oh, sure, I can do that. So the first one says, "The City of Columbus strives to provide quality services with a respectful and proactive approach and in accordance with our community's rural values." The second one says, "The City of Columbus provides quality services in a respectful, proactive manner that helps preserve our strong community and rural character." And so these mission statements would be, kind of a guiding statement for staff, for boards, for, really anybody who's doing work on behalf of the city to remind us like what it is that we're all striving to do.
I like A. How's that?
All right.
There you go.
I agree. I like A. Both are great. A is my preference.
Okay.
I
How
was going B.
about you, Mayor?
What page are we on?
69.
69.
69.
I got 59, but I don't have
69.
69. Oh, all right. I read these things 100 times back and forth, and I was at the meeting when this was done.
They're both so good, I know.
I know, it's just,
We could go either one.
I'll go with B.
Oh, that just stinks, because now I'm the tiebreaker. And I wrote the first one, so.
Well, yeah, it's on you.
All right, well then, I like the first one a little bit better, but I think they're both good. So I will make the motion to adopt choice A for our mission statement. The City of Columbus strives to provide quality services with a respectful and proactive approach and in accordance with our community's rural values.
This is Jenny. I'll second.
So
We got a motion, and we, on the floor, it was seconded. Any other discussion? We'll take a vote.
Jenny, I.
Scott, I.
Janet, aye.
Rabbi.
Run aye.
Well, that was easy. Thank you very much.
Well, I was going to say, pout. They're so close together.
They are. Aaron will be happy.
Okay, we're done. Item number 5 under D, Planning Commission report. Jennifer.
Okay, this one's a little more exciting. So we had, just going over, I just wrote everything out just because we have something to review, so I'm going to pass this out. This is a memo provided by Councilmember Hegland, so if you want to take one and pass them, just for reference. The Planning Commission met on March 19th to review a minor change to MTW truck wash that was approved tonight. There was one other discussion around the current Planning Commission policy 24-01 that states when a new CUP requiring a public hearing is requested, like Davey Tree, for example, tonight, the Planning Commission will hold an open forum for community members to make statements or address concerns, but no discussion or approval of the Planning Commission will happen at that meeting. Then at a future meeting, the Planning Commission would review the application for the CUP. In the case of Davey Tree, no residents spoke at the forum. They also required no building permits or watershed approval and are renting an existing building. And the Planning Commission mistakenly approved them on the same night that they had their open forum. This was addressed and reviewed by all Planning Commission members at our city planning meeting on March 19th. There was some frustration amongst the Planning Commission that they have no flexibility. And again, not all Planning Commission members feel that way, and I know we have one in here tonight, but not all Planning Commission members felt the same, but some felt that they didn't have the flexibility to potentially have this cut and dry situation, potentially like you had with the Davey Tree. And several council members and several city council members also attend the Planning Commission meetings regularly and in person. And I know that in talking to Council Member Hegland, a lot of that is for information gathering. Some of the members of the Planning Commission felt as though they were maybe being watched over when really it was more of information gathering. I did receive a memo from Councilmember Hegland on March 24th as I went through the Planning Commission. So stepping back a second, at the end of the Planning Commission meeting, I did express that we do value the Planning Commission, and all of us as city council members and our mayor valued the Planning Commission for the work that they do. I told them I would bring that back to the meeting tonight for us to discuss and for discussion. And I also asked for reference and information regarding the policy, the original policy as it was intended. I did receive that memo from Councilmember Hegland on March 24th and provided all of you a copy. There really aren't any actionable items tonight, but really it's more for reference. I know in the memo, Councilmember Hegland explains in detail why this two-meeting process is important, and really some of it comes down to confusion of the applicant that there were no concerns at the Planning Commission meeting like we had tonight, where all of a sudden tonight at our meeting there were several questions. So going from A to B seems quite a bit when really some of that can be resolved at the Planning Commission level. Planning Commission member Robin Wood felt two meetings was helpful to allow time to visit a site and to prepare questions, but also agreed with Planning Commissioner Carver Quinn that it sometimes seemed excessive. So really ultimately tonight, the question I have for all of us is this two-meeting situation at the Planning Commission, and we don't need an answer, it's really more just a thinking question. Is this something we want to review as a policy, or do we want to consistently keep what we have here, where they have two meetings at the Planning Commission level, and then it would move to the City Council? So that was our exciting day.
Should we discuss that tonight, or should we put it off to another night? If we want to discuss it, Jack or Bill, have any comments?
I would recommend if you want to discuss it, why don't we add it to our work meeting discussion next week?
Next week.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. Parks boards, that's me. We're going to kind of split this up a little here in the Parks Board. I'm going to talk a little about, we did talk to FLA, Forest Lake Athletic, softball, fast pitch, whatever their acronym is, about the dugout cover discussion. They threw some numbers at us as far as how much they'd throw in for dugouts, and we kind of countered it and threw another number back at them, like $1 for $1 instead of, whatever. And Leah, the representative, is going to take it back to her board and talk about that issue. The next issue on that was the park maintenance, but we'll leave that till our Public Works Director is talking in the end here. And then they talked about the park master plan update, and it's coming along pretty good. Maybe another few weeks, Ellie, or months, or?
Depends. Yeah, it's moving along pretty well. We've got a first draft put together that we're meeting as a subcommittee later in April and then proposing a second draft. Once we get a little bit more information on budget and financing stuff, then we should be pretty good.
And we talked about the tennis court, resurfacing that, and we're going to send out for bids. Not that they're approving any, they're going to look at the bids and see where we sit and come back with that later on that. Other than that, park maintenance was probably, and the dugouts was a pretty big discussion. But I'll let Jim do that in his next report, which is his right now. Jim?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I want to apologize a little bit up front. I'm having some crazy vision trouble, so I'm going to try to power through this best I can. So we've talked in the past, earlier this year, about RVS not renewing their contracts. And the direction was to go out and get bids from qualified contractors, which we did. We went to 6 contractors. Of the 6 contractors, we received three bids for mowing and 3 bids for the park maintenance. Those start on page 78. Of the 3 bids, they came back considerably higher than what we've paid RVS in the past, and I believe the closest bid was something just under $30,000 higher. So we had some conversations at a staff level to try to come up with some solutions for the situation that we're in, because we know that, we're not going to be able to award contracts at these prices. So what Jack and I talked about internally was that we take it in-house and Public Works takes over the mowing. We attempted to interview a part-time seasonal employee to see if that would be an option. We would purchase equipment and then they would work kind of before my time, but I think that's what they did years and years ago. It's been contract service ever since I've been here, but so we talked about that, and that seems to make the best financial sense for the community. With that said, I've had some conversations with RVS. He figures that he had about 600 hours of time in that season from April to October. So, we're gonna, hypothetically, it's gonna be 20% of one Public Works labor for that season, whether it's one person or divided up into 3 or 4 or however that works. But I think long-term, we, want to try to seek a seasonal employee for this, but at this point right now, it's not feasible, and we're quickly approaching that season. So, conceivably, we could be mowing next month. So, that said, I believe that Jack has a motion there for the city council to approve us to pull that from contract service to the Public Works Department. Before we do that, if anybody has any questions, I can, power through whatever questions we have. I don't think this is a surprise to anyone. We've kind of talked about it a few times, so just kind of the nuts and bolts right now.
I just have a question. So on 79, there was sort of like a calculation. It says there'd be 600 hours, given this expenditure of time, 200 additional total, or approximately 70 hours. So I'm thinking, I don't get it. So 600 hours.
I didn't get it either. So
good.
Jack and I talked about it.
Oh, good.
I thought that we were removing it, but
Okay.
I sent out a email that was not correct, and the corrected report was in the email. So the corrected report there reads, It is estimated approximately 600 hours required for RVS to complete their 2024 work. Given this expenditure of time, 200 hours annually for 3 Public Works employees would be required to perform the maintenance task previously done by RVS.
Okay, so the 70 hours annually or whatever, that, I mean, to me, it seemed like it would be, if you took 600 divided by 3 Public Works, it's about 200 hours?
Yep.
That's what you were trying to say, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I read that too, right?
Yeah.
And then I came over here, I'm like,
I didn't see that
it's
email,
either really
Jack. I
early
don't
in
know
the
what-
morning or I'm not
yeah,
getting it. And he
yeah.
said, well, it's really early in the morning. And he wasn't getting it either. So then he rewrote it, emailed it out. So
And then my other question is, you don't anticipate there's going to be overtime, right? I mean, you'll fit it into your schedule?
we're going to work it in the schedule.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
So, we're going to be probably more flexible with this process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
So are you guys going to do the striping of the, or?
we're going to do everything.
You're going to do
that-
everything that he did? Oh,
Yep,
boy.
everything that he did.
Okay.
So, and to be quite honest with you, we may end up doing a little bit more or a little bit less depending on what it is,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if we're over in the park, we're going to work on stuff.
Yep.
So, it's just, it's going to maybe, we got to try to figure it out. We've not ever done it. So, I kind of told the park board that, we're going to give it an effort, right? And it won't be due to lack of effort, but, we got to learn it. So I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. I've reached out to Ryan and he's willing to give us all the information, show us how to do things. So
Yeah.
it's not that hard. So I think it'll be just fine.
Okay, thank you. Well, and thank you for taking this on.
Yeah.
As an additional task.
There wasn't really any other options, and it is what it is, I mean, it makes sense.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
Rob?
Yeah, Ron, thank you. Got your name right this time. So are we going to be needing a leaf vac? Because I know Ryan had kind of a tow behind her. Is that trailer that you're talking about? Or we would just mulch it up and leave it?
so we're gonna need some stuff, right? So to start off, we're gonna buy a mower, we're gonna buy a weed whip, we're gonna buy a leaf blower, some of those things that, I mean, we have some of that now, but we use it elsewhere too. So we're gonna just set this up and that's where it's gonna go. So there's gonna be some things that we end up with, whether it's a mulching wagon, a mulching kit. Do we need a dethatcher to pull stuff out? I know Ryan uses dethatcher to kind of drag the fields a little bit too. So, I mean, I think there's going to be some stuff that we're gonna need to buy that I can't necessarily just sit here and identify, but weed whip, leaf blower, some sort of, mulching, backing system, there'll be some stuff. And we do have a trailer. I don't know if it'll work. So we may end up buying a trailer. But, at this point, we're entering into a new era, right? So we're going to set it up for equipment and, hopefully we find a retiree that lives in Columbus that wants to work a couple days a week and get that person on and, they want to hang out for a while and just try to make it as a stable process, and if, there's a day that person can't work, then Public Works has done it now, so we know the game and we just power through it.
Within the current budget, we have allocated for that for 2025, which is $37,500. We anticipate the startup cost for this with those items that Jim mentioned that we'll have to purchase will be approximately $27,000. So there will be another $10,000, and we will be looking to see if we can still find some seasonal help to get us through some of this year. So we won't be exceeding what we have budgeted for 2025 had we used Ryan or we use our services.
Rob?
Yeah, just one more thing. Thanks, Jim, for taking this on. And I know I think I spoke last year or the year before about what it looks like bringing it back in-house. And so I do appreciate that you decided to do that. And we're going to make the best of it. There's some very enormous numbers, right? And I feel like the bids we got did we bid it out again just to see if Ryan was being competitive like a few years ago? Maybe when I first got on council, or
I don't-
we just got comparables, maybe you and I talking,
Yeah,
to find that he was still probably the cheapest around doing it. And I'm glad we're able to make it work with the city staff, so thank you.
Jim, I got a question real quick. You used the word retiree all the time. Have you ever thought of a 18-year-old or a high school kid
College.
or college?
We've talked about that. You know, that's not out of the realm of possibility, right? Our thought process on retiree is that person wants to come back year after year, and you end up with, I'm going to say, you end up with a Ryan or a Dick and Tom that we used to have years ago. They came back every year, and they knew what the job was, and, you know, you weren't training somebody. So the hard part about, you know, I look at other communities that hire their college kids or whatever, it's great, no disrespect to any of that, but one of my guys will be over there training that person for some fair amount of hours, you know what I mean? And then at that point, do I just do it? So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So the thought process was, if we found somebody, and we interviewed a local that was very interested, but his wife said no. So to have that person come back year after year, at least for, you know, if you could get somebody on some, what I'm going to call long-term, 3, 4, 5 years, is helpful to everyone at that point. But, you know, there's no options off the table at this point.
I'm sure the distinction is not based on age, it's based on experience and know-how.
Yes.
Spoken like a true attorney.
Thank you.
Always looking for an angle.
I mean, to Jim's point, a lot of these golf courses around town here get mowed by, you know, retired machinery operators or things like that, or just looking to fill their mornings and things like that. So I think it is, with plenty of those people around here, that might be a good option.
Yeah.
But to speak to maybe the younger, I know I got a good friend that works public works in a town south of here. I won't name the town, but in the summer they have youth run the lawnmowers, and they find that they get a lot more beat up than if there was, maybe, I'm not going to age discriminate,
More mature person.
more mature person operating it. They're not trying to pull wheelies and spinning the flywheel off and things like that. So it's,
I agree with that. I just sometimes, I don't think we've got to limit ourselves to retirees. And I only say
No.
that because Lionel Lakes hires a lot of their maintenance people right off kids. They work 3 or 4 years, they
Yep.
like the way they work, and they bring them in to maintenance. So, I mean, I don't know.
good point.
Up to that far yet, but, and I don't even know how many hours, you know, how many high school kids, they probably want to, in the summer, work 40 hours a week, and maybe you don't have 40 hours to give them.
We're looking at potentially 2 days a week.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not, you know, other communities hire, you know, seasonal help. They're working 40 hours a week for, you know, some period of time till they go back to school or, you know, whatever they do. So, and for us, it's probably 2 days a week.
And you know, if anybody that would be a good employee, we're not worried about what their age is. A lot of things Jim said regarding the extra training comes into effect. But if there's somebody that's a younger person that might make a good employee, we're certainly open to them. But generally, sometimes gray whiskers are a lot better than people that just started shaving.
Okay. So should we make a motion? Anybody want to make a motion?
I can make the motion. I move to approve that the City Public Works Department assume grounds maintenance duties for the city parks in those public areas identified in 7DB of the March 26, 2025 City Council packet in lieu of contracting this service to outside vendors.
This is Rob, I'll second.
We got a motion, we got a second. Is there any other discussion? Questions? Hearing none. Rob?
Rob, aye.
Janet, I.
Scott, aye.
Jenny, I.
And Ron, aye. We'll go down to the mower purchase. You want to talk about that a little, or?
Yeah. So I handed out kind of a colorful little comparison list, I'm going to call it. We priced out Three mowers. So one was a Toro, one was a Ferris, and one was a John Deere. All very good commercial mowers. If you look at the John Deere, it's a 37 horsepower gas, 11.5 gallon fuel tank, 60-inch mower deck. Under suspension, I have none. So John Deere does not have any type of suspension other than a potential suspension seat. The other two mowers have a form of suspension where Toro has what they call a MyRide, which is it's a suspension cradle. So your seat and the little pedestal that you sit on has suspension, 3 shocks, 1 in the front, 2 in the back. You adjust that to your weight, and they ride very nice. Toro is a fantastic mower. The Ferris is 4-wheel suspension, similar to what your car would be, independent, so there's a shock on each corner. The independent suspension is different on the Ferris versus the Toro. The Toro is like a solid front axle, so if you're going over divots or, crossways through a ditch, depending on what angle you're mowing or something like that, you potentially have one wheel off the ground at any given time, taking some stability away, or your ride quality kind of changes a little bit there too. It's if you look at the spindle housings on the Toro, they're a 9-inch aluminum maintenance-free housing. The Ferris has a 10-inch cast iron with grease zerks, and the John Deere has a 8-inch cast iron spindle. So those are basically the drives for the blades underneath the deck. Like I said, all 3 of these manufacturers make great mowers. My recommendation with the terrain that we're doing is the Ferris. Not gonna lie, happens to be the most expensive one. But that said, just looking at the terrain and where we mow, not just the park across the street, we're mowing along Hornsby Street, we're mowing along Zurich Street. There's a lot of, hills and side hills and valleys and, rough terrain. So that said, my recommendation is that we purchase a Ferris mower.
I'd just like to put 2 points. That's what Ryan had.
That is what Ryan had, and I picked his brain a lot about why he buys the one that he buys. And, I know, talking to John Waldock knows Ryan and tried to get him to buy John Deere for years, and he wouldn't do it. And Toro, same way. And I've used his mower personally, borrowed it from him so I could try it, because I'm looking at buying a mower myself, and that is the mower that I would personally buy as well.
The other thing about the ride and the suspension is those types of mowers that have the better ride reduce operator fatigue. And if anybody's ever mowed a lot, even with a riding mower, it looks like it's easy, but if you mow 3 or 4 hours, you come off there, and if somebody asks you to pick up $1 on the ground, you couldn't do it. So it helps in that respect too.
This is Janet. So all of these bids are through this Department of Administrative State Procurement. I mean, these are the state prices, right?
So the John Deere and the Toro are state contract.
Okay.
The Ferris is, I can't think of the name of it. It's another.
Is it the cooperative thing?
It's a cooperative thing. I can't think of the name of it.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
So if you look at the retail price versus the, these prices, they're all about $5,000 off-ish.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
They're good prices.
It's a solid discount for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Rob?
Yeah, and I would just say, you'd mentioned on these spindle housings, nothing on a commercial mower is maintenance-free, so that's alarming. That Toro says it's maintenance-free, right? I have a Toro myself, and it's greasable. It's a commercial unit.
I was surprised by that. And that is, their 6,000 series mower. So, I mean, it's the Toro Z Master, not necessarily top of the line, because they make bigger mowers and, they make diesels, they make all sorts of different things, but commercial grade mower, all 3. So I was a little surprised by that as well, but, that doesn't mean that it's not going to last,
Yeah. and-
2,000 hours either, so.
Yeah, and I'd done lawn maintenance in the past and worked for commercial lawn companies, and definitely that Ferris is probably something we'll want to go with. The Toro, I would say second best, but we're going to get longevity out of that. And I think Ryan, talking with him, he had a lot of hours on that. Granted, his was a diesel, right?
He's had a couple, two
I
or
think the
three
last
different
one was a
ones, but-
diesel, but yeah, he's got good longevity out of him. So my recommendation would be Jim's as well, the Ferris.
Actually, there's not that big a difference in price between them. I mean, you're talking a couple, yeah,
$471 or something?
yeah, $300 between the John Deere and the Ferris, and $500 between the Toro and the Ferris. So they're not hugely different.
No.
And that could be the difference of one spindle assembly that went out on a non-greasable thing, you know?
Well, I think, yeah, ergonomically and just the suspension on that Ferris makes sense. I mean, your ROI is not having to repair because of a suspension issue.
Right.
Going over the ground you have to cover.
Work comp.
You have anything,
See,
Jennifer?
yeah, exactly.
No, I feel thankful that you're willing to take this on, that the department is, so make sure that they all know we're grateful for that. Definitely saves on our budget. And so this seemingly is a pretty cut and dry choice.
I guess I'll make a motion. I move to approve the purchase of an ISX 3300 Ferris 60-inch deck zero-turn mower to be used for mowing of city properties.
This is Janet, I second.
Have a motion on the floor, second it. Any other discussion, comments? Having none? Jennifer?
Jenny, I.
Scott, I.
Janet, I.
Rob, aye.
And Ron, aye.
The last thing that I got, Mr. Mayor and Council, is last Wednesday, we had a little catastrophe in our water department. We had a water main break, first one ever in Columbus. So we got our SCADA system called, and you pull that up and you can kind of see how your system's operating. And we were running at a low pressure, somewhere between 3,300 and 35 gallons a minute of water. So that there's something going awry. Hard part is trying to figure out where that's at, right? So the guys went out and started snooping around quick, and they came across it pretty fast. So probably within 10 minutes of getting that call, we knew where the water main break was, which is a saving grace for us. We don't have that water tower that we hope to talk about soon. So basically, we rely on, at that point, just pumps running. And they were all running. Everything worked as it should. The problematic part of what happened to us is our pressure system is by Freeway Mini Storage, so Well House 1, and the Ziegler Pump House south of that. The water main break was just north of that. So what we ended up having to do was shut off the water. It shut off two businesses and a residence. So Freeway Mini Storage, the house next to that, which I believe is where Pat and Mary used to live, and then Gander Outdoors, or RVs, I don't know what they're called at this point. It's Gander Mountain to me. So those three businesses were the only ones affected for some period of time. Once we shut that water off, we ended up turning on a fire hydrant by Well House 2-3, and that ran for about 25, 30 hours of time, just basically pumping water. But what we do there is we use that fire hydrant to control the pressure in the system that wouldn't have pressure otherwise if we weren't running that. So, you have to kind of get creative on how you operate at that point. So, we got a bunch of calls saying, why is the hydrant running? So you try to power through as much of that as you can. We contacted Olson Sewer, and they do a lot of water main break stuff. They came out, called in emergency locates, and we didn't actually start working on that repair until Thursday because it was late enough in the day that if we would have dug down to it, we wouldn't have been able to get parts for whatever they may have been. So Thursday, we dug and found out that the wet tap saddle that they mounted on our 16-inch water main to complete a loop around over to Hornsby Street under the freeway, the bolts rotted off that saddle, and that's what gave way. So then, it's a 12-inch diameter hole in the side of a 16-inch pipe that is just pumping water. We made that repair. I will say that we used Olson Sewer, Columbus business. David's Hydrovac was out there, Columbus business. And we actually got clean fill material from Bituminous Roadways. So Bituminous Roadways actually had some people on site doing maintenance, but I called the corporate office and, they made sure that, whatever we needed, they were there for. So kudos to all of those companies for helping out. It was a smooth process. Obviously took longer than what I would like to because, you want everything to be back online. And the three businesses / residents that were down were very, very understanding. We bought water for the resident and, the businesses didn't really care about that. Once we were back online, we took a bunch of water tests to make sure that our water was still good and documented all that with the Department of Health, of course. And we were back online by 6 o'clock on Thursday.
That's not a cheap process, is it?
That will not be a cheap process.
And that comes out of the enterprise then?
That will come out of the enterprise fund, so the capital fund. I will attempt to make a claim to the League of Minnesota Cities, even though it states that they don't pay it. It's free for us to make a claim, and they may. So that's going to be, once I get the bills in, we took all sorts of pictures and documented things and, kind of wrote up our little history of what happened, and I'll send all of that to our insurance agent, and, he'll submit it, and they'll say yay or nay. So hopefully they pay something, but, at this point, it says they won't, so we'll just see.
It's a price of being a city, huh?
It's the price of being a city in the municipal business.
Well, you survived it, so congratulations.
What's that?
You survived it, congratulations.
Yeah.
I know Brady was spending the night in the Public Works building that night. I
did.
happened to be up here for some meetings, so you guys look like you were all hitting on all cylinders that day.
It's fun. I mean, you don't ever want to deal with it. You don't ever want to make the news, but that stuff is fun for me because it really shows what you're good at, and it shows what you forgot about. And, every time something like this happens, you make adjustments to things, and that's just what makes you better in the future. And you know what? It's great training knowing that nobody got hurt, right? So, I mean, you can talk about all of that stuff. You can, try to simulate troubles like that, but you don't have the shock factor of water pouring out of the ground and the oh crap moment that this is real.
And it wasn't 20 below zero.
Well, I will tell you that is the nicest water main break that I've ever worked on. And I've done probably 25, just at different places. But yeah, generally they're mid-January, 20 below, cold as heck.
Freezing as fast as it's pouring out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the street. So, I mean, it worked out as absolute best that it could. I mean.
Good. Do you have anything else?
That is it.
Jack?
On December the 23rd, we set our city calendar. We set the April EDA meeting for the 17th of April. In between the 23rd and I believe the second week of January, we were informed by the county with the selection of dates available for our local Board of Appeals and Equalization, that we could have the 17th or the 24th of April. The 24th was a conflict for a lot of people, so we chose the 17th of April as our LBA&E meeting date. That conflicted with our meeting date that was set for the second EDA meeting of the year. But at our meeting on the 17th of January, we did change the meeting date to the 15th. I've checked and made sure that Judy and Karen were still okay with that date, and they were. So I'm checking with City Council to see if that date is still acceptable for your schedules. That would be the 15th of April for both our work and regular EDA meeting date.
So that's a EDA workshop, Jack?
Correct.
We'll still have our workshop on the first Tuesday as well of April?
This would be on the 15th, so our first city workshop will be on April the 1st.
Okay.
That works for me.
So we would have a meeting the 16th, or we would not have one on the 16th because there would be a planning commission
There'll be
meeting,
a planning
right?
commission on the 16th, and the
Okay.
17th is their local Board of Appeals and Equalization. So the 15th would be the recommended date at this time to have our EDA meetings, if that works with everybody's schedule.
Okay.
I have no problem. Jennifer?
Nope, that's fine.
Scott?
No problem.
I do have a conflict, but if I can't get it moved, I can be available on Zoom. So if that works for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Janet, did you say it was okay?
Yep, it's fine. Tax day.
What time?
It'd be at 5:30.
5:30.
5:30 for the workshop meeting and 6:30 for the regular meeting.
Anything else, Jack?
That'll be it on that, and now we get to discuss a topic that we've had on the last two council meetings. That's the Hornsby Street, Eureka Avenue project. On February 26th, their meeting, our city engineer informed us that the wetland permitting was ready to start for this project. And unfortunately, the trail portion of those improvements was not covered by the local government roads wetland replacement program. So the cost of those wetland credits would have to be borne by the city. The cost of that, as the information provided by the city engineer, was $18,006.52. We did check with the Rice Creek Watershed District. There was some feeling that we did have some wetland credits out there. We checked with their staff. Their staff informed us that we had no wetlands credits. Council member Hagelin remembered that there was some agreement made with the Watershed District several years ago. So we checked with the administrator and their board of managers and were told that there were some credits out there and we could petition for seeing if these would be eligible for this project. However, they did tell us in a letter that their criteria were primarily for wetlands credits use for flooding issues, water quality issues, and basically ditch repair issues, and that trails generally were not considered in this. They did state that we could petition for the credits for this, and so we set up a meeting with them that was held this morning, and I'm going to let Janet deliver the good news on that, because we were going into that meeting suspecting maybe that they were going to deny that, but we had quite a surprise when we walked through the door. Janet?
Thank you, Jack. So, we basically made the request that because a couple years ago we had that conversation with them about wetland credits that we felt were due to us based on this memorandum of understanding we had a number of years ago when there was a whole chain of events that happened. when we went back to try to claim those, they weren't going to give them to us, but what they wrote in a memo was that they would be willing to entertain, or they would be willing to consider a request for credits for projects that fit their criteria. So we went in with the intent of requesting the number of credits that we needed, which was outlined in the memo that Brian did, and that it's in our packet. So it's a very small number, a little over 1/10 of an acre worth, and it is valued at just a little over $18,000. What they said in the meeting was that because it did not fit those criteria that Jack mentioned, it wasn't about ditch work or repairing ditches or flood mitigation or any of those kinds of things. They couldn't or they wouldn't give us credits, but what they would do is they would pay what it would cost for us to purchase them. And the reason that they can do that is because they had a fund that they had established prior. They call it their Clear Lake Fund, but it was basically a fund that they set up to improve access to Clear Lake. And because this trail does that, that's the whole purpose of the trail, is to provide access to the lake. They felt it was a reasonable use of that money, and so the agreement and the unanimous decision of the board was that they would issue a check to Columbus for the amount that it costs us to purchase these credits. So we would be held whole on this, which is really good. So thank you, Race Creek Watershed. That was worth going to their meeting for that. I have one other thing to add to that, but is there any other questions or anything else? Anybody just related to that piece of information?
And I'd like to thank our city engineers this morning for replying so promptly to several questions that we asked, so we'd have the information to give them. Thanks for that quick response.
And they did ask that question. That made a big difference, I think, having that, so I appreciate that too. Okay, so then the second thing is that the request, so that was all really good. We went up to thank the board, and their request to us was that, they did that for us. That really helped us out. Do we feel that we are now, that they've satisfied that kind of commitment that they outlined in that memo to us? Basically, are we good now? And I said, well, I can't really commit on behalf of the whole council, so I will bring that to the meeting tonight. So really the question is, if you remember what was in that memo, it was pretty vaguely written, but basically they said they would entertain requests. They're going to do that anyway because we're a community in the Race Creek Watershed. I think I would recommend that we issue a statement, however we do that, in a letter form or something, that basically thanks them for the support that they gave us, and basically tells them that we're satisfied with the outcome of this, and that Bill, you had good words. I can't remember the words you used, but they were very good words you used.
In light of the consideration, we consider the matter resolved.
Yes, thank you.
We can reference the date of the MOU.
Yes. So basically, we wouldn't go back to them with that little memo and ask for more. Doesn't mean we can't ask for more just because we're part of their district, and I think that they would like to just feel that is a resolved issue. I think we would like to feel it's a resolved issue too, so I think that's a win-win. So if there's questions, we can talk about that. Otherwise, I'll make the motion that we direct staff to draft that memo.
Rob, did you have a question before?
No, so is this in relation to the motion that's written here as well? Is that what you're talking on? Is that, so it's saying that it's going to Forest Lake, the payment?
Well, it says it's going to Forest Lake because Forest Lake is the one that's got the purchase agreement for buying the credits. So what would happen is that we would pay Forest Lake the $18,000.
Sure.
And they would purchase all of the credits required for that project.
Okay.
So what they will do, and this is details that Jack and Nick will work out, like how the money.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it didn't need to say Columbus.
No,
understand.
it's a good question.
So,
It's a little confusing. So.
yeah, definitely.
And just briefly, what'll happen, this will give us a chance to cut the check because the time is running out to get us in on that permitting process. And then on April the 9th, we'll send them an invoice, and they will cut us the check to reimburse us for that cost.
Great.
Yep.
Roundabout way, but we're getting there.
Yeah, it's
thank you.
all good. So with that, then I would move to approve the city's share of the wetland credit costs for the trail portion of this Hornsby Street, Eureka Street, or Eureka Avenue project for the payment to the city of Forest Lake in the amount of $18,006.52.
This is Ron, I'll second that. Having a motion, it's been second. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, Jennifer?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Ron?
Janet, aye.
Rob, aye.
Ron, aye. I got to say thank you, Janet, and thank you, Jack, and thank you, Brian, for all your work on that. I mean, it's still $18,000 in our pocket.
Hey, it'll pay for the more.
Yeah, maybe we could send you down and beg, you know.
Yeah.
Item E on the agenda, announcements and reminders. City Council work meeting April 1st, 2025 at 5:30 PM. Planning Commission meeting April 2nd, 2025 at 6 PM. City Council meeting April 9th, 2025 at 6 PM. EDA work and regular meeting April 15th, 2025 at 5:30 PM. Planning Commission April 16th, 2025 at 6 PM. And Local Board of Appeals and Equalization meeting April 17th, 2025 at 6 PM. Before we get a motion to adjourn, I'm going to meet with Anoka County Sheriff's Department with the Fire Department on Friday morning here. We're going to discuss calls that they have. Is there any questions anybody in the council have for the Sheriff's Department? I mean, like get out of jail free card or something?
Were you going to talk to?
that our business card?
Jessica's
No.
going there.
What?
Jessica's at that rate too?
Jessica will be one of them there.
Okay.
There'll be two of them.
And you were going to talk to her about Fall Fest also at the same time?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I can talk to her about Fall Fest so that she doesn't have to show up at your meeting.
Oh, okay, yeah, she was planning to come to the meeting.
Yeah,
because of
I
that.
mean, we'd save her some time, but just the same old, everything
Perfect.
they did last time.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay?
Thank you.
Take a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is it second?
Scott, I'll second.
Okay, we'll take a vote. Jenny?
Jenny, aye.
Scott, aye.
Janet, aye.
Rob, aye.
Ron, aye.